Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binote sheyarbitzeni, al me menuchot yenachaleni, nafshi shovev, yanachini v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki helech begets al mavet, lo irarai ki atai mati, shiftecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosir vaya ach tov v'chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai v'shaveti b'beit Adonai le'orech yamim. I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. On these difficult days, on days when our hearts are aching and we feel the need for comfort and strength, we often turn to the psalmist. And so I ask you at this time to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember Eileen Kless. To her children, to Debbie and Vicky and Cindy, also to Larry and Kent, and to her grandchildren, Chad, Ryan and Diane, and also to David and Halen, and to her sisters-in-law, Nori and Phyllis and Cookie, and her brother-in-law, Denny, and to all the members of the family, and to so many dear and cherished friends. We've come together today to remember, but also to celebrate your beloved Eileen. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness, and from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Eileen's remarkable journey of 92 years began here in Cleveland. She was born in 1924 to Lena and Maurice Bletcher. Eileen and her older brother Art, of blessed memory, grew up in the beloved area known simply as Kinsman. And they grew up there during some of the most challenging years in our nation's history. And they had their struggles. The Depression and post-Depression years were difficult on Eileen, Art, and especially on their mother, Lena. Eileen's parents, while they never officially divorced, they became estranged, and Eileen and her brother grew up under the guidance of their single mother. Meals were often quite meager, and Eileen's clothes were all hand-me-downs. But there was a large extended family that always tried to help out, and they were there, always there, being very protective of Lena, Art, and Eileen. While Lena, Eileen's mother, worked outside of the home, she also handled all of the household chores. And there were many relatives, and I have to mention especially the relative known simply as Uncle Sam, who I'm told was a bookie. But Uncle Sam and the relatives were very helpful and generous towards Eileen and her brother. Now, Eileen, growing up and throughout her entire life, was a gifted and talented athlete. At John Adams High School, she played on intramural basketball, softball, and tennis teams. She was always the strongest player on each of these teams, but Eileen was no stranger to the sharp sting of anti-Semitism during this time of her life, as she was never allowed to be named captain of any team because she was Jewish. Dealing with anti-Semitism and also dealing with other teenage girls who would often tease Eileen about her clothes, she grew to be thick-skinned and living proof of the motto, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." She would tell her daughters that she and her mother Lena were from the school of hard knocks. With Eileen, she and her family, they endured, and she could have grown up to be bitter and to be angry, but this was not Eileen. She was always outgoing and gregarious and well-liked and very popular. And she was a popular girl, especially among the boys, who found her to be intelligent, funny, and beautiful. Eileen always wanted to go to college, but we know the family was not able to afford this. She wanted to be a lawyer. One, she liked to argue, but more importantly, she felt compelled to stand up for the rights of others. Following her graduation from high school, Eileen entered into the workforce, working mostly in the area of bookkeeping and sales. And as World War II was coming to an end and soldiers were beginning to return home, there were in every city and in every town many celebrations and numerous dances. One evening, Eileen attended a dance, and like a scene from an old Hollywood movie, she glanced across the room and she saw a very, very handsome man. And the man noticed her as well. He approached her and asked her to dance. Harry Kless had just returned from the war. Harry and Eileen danced and chatted, and as they continued to dance, Eileen learned that Harry was charming and vivacious, and that he was 7 years her senior. And Harry saw in Eileen, from that very first dance, a young lady who was beautiful and sexy and personable, and who had no trouble at all telling a cute joke. Harry was instantly smitten with Eileen. After a brief courtship, Harry and Eileen were married on June 29, 1947, at the Lakeshore Country Club. Together, they journeyed through life, and they mostly journeyed as a partner on the dance floor. They danced their way through life, and they had a whole group of dancing friends who they'd go out with almost every Saturday night for dinner dances. They also traveled the world together, visiting the entire country. They traveled across the United States. They also traveled to France and England and Australia, Italy and Israel, and they made friends with people that they met on their travels. And some of these friends, namely the couple in Australia, became so close with them that they'd come and visit them here in Cleveland. These were two very friendly, outgoing people. Together, they enjoyed the theater. They loved going to shows, especially musicals, and they would take their daughters with them to these shows. They traveled all over Northeast Ohio to see different productions. And when these theaters were a little bit of a ride, a little bit of a distance, their daughters remember being in the car on the way home singing all the show tunes. Eileen and Harry enjoyed having some really good, trusted, loyal friends. And they loved to have friends and family over to their house. They were very warm and very welcoming, and people were just drawn to them. And with all their friends and all their activities, nothing brought Eileen and Harry more joy, of course, than their daughters, Debbie, Vicki, and Cindy, their most precious gems. After a battle with cancer, Harry died in November of 1996, after he and Eileen had shared 49 years of marriage together. In the Jewish wedding ceremony, there is a moment that we know as the Sheva Brachot, which means the 7 blessings. And in the 7 wedding blessings, the bride and groom are referred to as Reim Ahuvim. Literally translated, this means loving partners. This is what Harry and Eileen were, Reim Ahuvim, partners, loving partners for all of those years. Now, as we know, Eileen had her 3 daughters, and her daughters had each other. And sometimes it was Eileen and her daughters, but sometimes when Eileen was with her daughters, it was like 4 sisters. Debbie, in recalling your mom, the first word that came out of your mouth as we spoke, you said the word integrity. I love that you said that word first. What a quality, an important quality that so many people lack today. You described your mom as a woman with integrity, a woman who was generous, and a woman who was very practical. You also noted that she was quite fun. Every year on her birthday, she would go to visit Las Vegas, where you and Larry would meet with her. Larry, you were her official and personal Uber driver as you pushed her wheelchair everywhere. And we know this meant so much to her. She loved to visit with the 2 of you. She loved to take in all the shows. When there was a show that had a lot of showgirls, she preferred the version that was not for the children. We'll just leave it at that. She went to the Burlesque Museum. And she was a woman who appreciated beauty and art in the world. Debbie, you and your mom had a similar kind of core character, your drive to meet challenges and get things done. And there was a recent visit that you, Debbie, with your sisters and your mom had. You ended up in the Kent area, and you went to visit the Kent State University Fashion Museum. Your mom loved fashion, like you do, and you shared this interest. And with your mom and your sisters, you spent a beautiful day viewing all these wonderful creations. And Vicki, you stated of your mom how she really understood her children, and she understood how each of you, her 3 daughters, were beautiful and very different in so many ways. You said she knew what you needed, and she knew how each of you needed to be loved. And Vicki, you always recalled that while your mom and dad did so much traveling together, when your dad passed, you became her travel companion. There were the annual winter trips, and there was a very special adventure to Argentina, but these are special memories that you and your mom built together, and memories that will accompany you for many, many years. And Cindy, you described your mom as a woman who embodied grace and strength. You said she was the most empathetic person and that she taught you and your sisters to be that way as well. She taught you to be genuine, and she had this moral compass that showed her what was the right thing to do. And this was important for her to pass on to you, Cindy, as well as to Vicki and Debbie. You said she was a woman who respected other people's rights. And Cindy, you remembered that as you got a little bit older, and when your sisters went off to college, it seems that your mother-daughter relationship had a little bit of a shift as you grew to become great friends, best friends. So when your sisters were off at college, you would spend quality time on Saturdays with your mom, shopping, going to dance performances, and you were always in awe, to the very end, of your mom's strength. And you know that she gave you some of that as well. You've drawn from her strength. Cindy, we know that these last several months, you spent so much time as her primary caregiver, your sisters coming into town as often as they possibly could. But we know you were the one who was there on the daily basis. And this is something that's a beautiful example to all of us. Now, to say that Eileen adored her grandchildren and that she was proud of them, this, of course, would be a great understatement. And to the grandchildren, I say that even though you lived away from your grandparents' hometown of Cleveland, the only thing between you and your grandparents were miles, just miles. Nothing else separated you. Not the love, not the respect. You were very close. And visits with your grandparents were always warm and always so comfortable. And the specific connections that your grandmother had with each of you in ways of your common interests, this is so fascinating. Ryan, you as an accountant, you and your grandma shared that love of numbers, her bookkeeping skills and your accountant skills. This meant so much to her. And Chad, the enjoyment that both you and your grandmother shared between dance and singing and music. And Diane, your art skills, your talents that she loved, and she herself was such an advocate for the arts and loved beauty. These are special memories that all of you will hold close in your hearts. Grandma Eileen was delighted and thrilled, really, to have these special bonds and connections with you. Now, years after the passing of her beloved Harry, Eileen met Mo Malberg, a good and sweet man who remained her companion, her boyfriend, and her dance partner for 10 years. They had a lot of fun together, and they shared family celebrations and holidays, and they shared life together for a decade until the time of his passing. If you knew Eileen, then you knew a woman who lived life to the fullest. 2 years ago, in celebration of her 90th birthday, the entire family gathered in Las Vegas to celebrate. Everyone had a great time, but everyone knew that Eileen had the best time. And where most of us might start to slow down a bit as each birthday comes and passes, Eileen was a woman who I think accelerated. As a life master bridge player, Eileen played bridge 3 or 4 times a week at Fairmount Temple and the Beechwood Recreation Center. She participated in line dancing and aerobics and other forms of exercise 2 to 3 times a week. When she was 83, I'm told she had to give up her game of tennis because of knee replacements at the age of 83. And she was great at tennis, and she was feared on the courts for her wicked serve. Eileen took classes through the Oasis program, and she remained involved in the Jewish Secular Society. And she, for so many of you who are sitting here today, she was the official social director. She was the gal who knew what was going on in town, where it was, what time it was, and if it was free. She would tell you what was going on. Not only was she the social director for you, sometimes, because she was able to drive at night, she was your taxi. And she'd make sure that all her friends had a ride, and she would save a seat at any dinner table for someone who was coming late to the meal. Her calendar, her daughters noted as they looked at her calendar just the other day, her actual calendar was completely booked with activities through the month of August. Eileen loved her chocolate. She loved ketchup. on and in everything. And as I read for you at the beginning of the service, the beautiful words, in the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. I must say that every time her children and grandchildren see a rose, they will remember her. She loved roses. Eileen also felt compelled to share what I would call pearls of wisdom. There were times where she would meet younger women who were starting off their career or their families, and Eileen would take the time to remind them that while they might be busy taking care of their children, tending to their husband's needs, or developing their careers, that they should always remember to take care of themselves and to carve out time to do the things that they wanted to do, that this was the most important thing. Eileen lived independently in her home on Baintree in University Heights from 1957 until just these past few months. And her last day was spent in typical Eileen style. On the last day of her life, she played bridge. She was a bit ticked off that she came in sixth place. She visited with friends and spent quality time with family members. This is how she spent her last day. What a blessing. What a blessing. Our tradition has taught us that words which come from our heart enter directly to the heart. At this time, I would like to call on her grandchildren who have words and memories in their hearts that they want to share with us.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan. This is my husband David. I am Vicky's daughter and proud grandson of Eileen. I'm Vicky's son. What I meant to say, the middle daughter of Eileen. Pronouns. So, I love my grandma. My grandmother she was a lioness. That's how I remember her. She had a quick wit, which she would remind me of often. She loved to remind people how smart she was, because she was not bashful. But, and she passed that down to me. As you said, she was a bookkeeper, and I'm an accountant. And as soon as I started going into that profession, she would remind me, I was a bookkeeper, and this is where you get your numbers from. And I did. I got my logic from my grandmother, and so much more too. Another thing I got from her, she was a very pragmatic woman. She was pragmatic, but she wasn't cynical, and that I think is one of the most important things that she taught me, is that you have to be truthful to yourself. And you have to, you don't want to lie to yourself. You have to see things for how they are, but at the same time, you don't want to be cynical. You can still have hope. And that's how she lived her life. She always knew she was such a smart lady, right, but she was very hopeful. And she loved all of us. Another reason that she was a lioness is how much she loved all of us. She would always stand up for herself and for her family. I know that my grandmother always loved me, and every piece of me, and not only that, but she celebrated everything about who I was, and all of us. There's one memory. I have one memory that I'd like to share. Was again with her quick wit, and she loved to play bridge. There was a game we were playing hearts one day. We were playing cards, and she'd never played hearts before. It's a similar game where you're trying to collect as few points as possible. But what I didn't tell her when we first played the game, that if you do collect all of the points, then you actually win. And she was and I told her afterwards that there's this other rule that I should let her know about. And she's like, she just gives me this incredulous look, like, well, why didn't you tell me? Of course. The very next game, she collects all the points and beats all of us. This is her first time playing, by the way. So, Grandma, I'll always remember her, and I will always love her, and I'm so blessed for all of the things that she has imparted unto me. So thank you. And thank you all for coming.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm Cindy's daughter, Eileen's granddaughter. This is my husband, Halen. Eileen was that grandmother that you see in the movies that everyone wishes was their own, because she's just perfect and hilarious. And I was lucky enough that she was my grandmother. She had hundreds of unique qualities, but her strongest was her resiliency. As she mentioned, her father was institutionalized when she was 6, and back then there was a stigma against women whose husbands were not there with them. But Lena, Eileen's mother, stepped up as the head of the household, and I think that she passed down that strength to Eileen. She used that quality throughout her life, and she never let people get to her. She once told me she took all the best qualities from the people she admired to shape herself and left the rest behind. Grandma knew no one was perfect and learned to love them despite their imperfections. I'd like to think I inherited her optimism. I wish I inherited her ability to dance, but that didn't happen. You can't have everything. Grandma's humor and wit will forever remain a University Heights legacy. We loved her, we miss her. Grandpa would be very proud of her.
Hi everyone, I'm Chad. I am Vicky's son and Eileen's grandson. My grandmother was a fiercely independent and generous and joyful woman. And she also never let anyone really get the best of her if she felt they were trying to take advantage of her. If you don't mind, I'd like to share a story that many of you have probably heard before. And a story that every time someone new met my grandmother, I'd ask her to share with them. So, this was before I was born. My grandparents were having an addition to the house put on. They were having a den built, and the contractors that they had hired decided to put up the shell of the room, but then not really come back and bother to finish it. So I believe like the floor was in, and they'd put up all of the structure, but nothing was finished. So my grandmother was getting tired of calling them and decided to let them know that she was going to have a party for her eldest daughter at the end of the week. And she was going to have the party in the new room, whether or not they came to finish it. And for everyone who showed up, she was going to tell them exactly who finished that or who worked on that room. And lo and behold, the next day, the entire crew was there, and the den was finished in time for the party. My grandmother had a quick wit, but she was also very generous and kind, and I don't think anyone who knew her ever really worried about her judgment. I know growing up, like me, my brother, my cousin Diane, we were never worried about anything that we would do would ever disappoint my grandmother, as long as it was something that we wanted to do. We knew that even if she didn't understand some of our decisions, if it was something that made us happy, then she was happy. The thing I feel she wanted the most for all of us was that we would live our lives in the way that we chose, just like she tried to live her life. I don't think that anyone really that I know was better than being alive than my grandmother. Every day it seemed like she was doing exactly what she wanted to. She knew where she wanted to go, who she wanted to see, and the people who she wanted to help. So, thank you all for coming.
We now take a moment of silent prayer as we ask God to accept her soul. As you are able, I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochen bamromim, המשים מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מסהירים. את נשמת יקירנו, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתה. אנא ברחמים אסתירך, בסתר כנפיך לרמים, ותתרור בתרורך חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Eileen Kless, who has gone now to her eternal home, may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Grant that her memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. Please be seated. We will be processing to the Mount Olive Cemetery. Following the interment, the family will receive visitors at the residence at 4446 Bain Tree in University Heights until 8 p.m. tonight. Also, visitation will take place tomorrow and Sunday from 2 until 7. Anyone wishing to make a contribution in memory of Eileen, the family has suggested that you might consider the American Cancer Society, Belfair JCB, or Menorah Park. On behalf of Eileen's family, we thank you for your support and love on this very important and sad day.